The library of the de la Roche mansion is a sanctuary of silence and knowledge. The walls are lined with towering bookshelves, holding hundreds of books with elegant bindings. The scent of aged paper and tanned leather lingers in the air, a familiar blend for Yasmina who, besides being a housemaid, is also an avid student of literature. That day as she dusts the shelves, her fingers brush against an unusual cover. The book is covered in a thin layer of dust, a sign of its abandonment. Intrigued, she pulls it out from its place, wedged between a work by Voltaire and a collection of Baudelaire's poetry. Her eyes land on the title engraved in golden letters, The Holy Quran. A shiver runs down her spine. How did a Quran end up here in a family so distant from religion? She delicately opens it. The pages are yellowed with time. As she turns one of them, she notices a passage that has been underlined, written in faint blue ink, almost faded. Is it not by the remembrance of Allah that hearts find peace? Surah Ar-Raid 13:28. Her heartbeat quickens. Someone in this house once sought peace within these pages. But who? A noise in the hallway pulls her back to reality. She quickly closes the Quran and returns it to its place. But this discovery has planted a seed in her mind, and perhaps in the hearts of this family as well. Monsieur de la Roche is the embodiment of Western success. For more than 40 years, he has ruled over a financial empire that dominates entire industries. His name commands both respect and fear. But behind this facade of authority lies a silent dissatisfaction, a void he refuses to confront. His view of the world is simple. Money buys everything. Power commands respect. Religion is a weakness. His wife, Eleanor de la Roche, is a sophisticated socialite who, behind her refined smiles, conceals a deep loneliness that no jewelry can fill. Their children, Adrian and Camille, have grown up in opulence. And yet, they are searching for something more, without knowing exactly what. In this mansion where everything seems perfect, the souls within are, in truth, lost. One evening, as Yasmina is finishing her workday, she hears raised voices coming from the dining room. She stops behind the slightly open door. "You should listen to Yasmina," Adrian says with a smirk. "She knows more about happiness than all of us put together." His father raises an eyebrow, both surprised and annoyed. "Oh really? And how exactly would a housemaid be an expert on happiness?" Yasmina can't help but feel a sting of pain at the condescending remark, but she remains calm. Adrian, however, does not back down. Because she has an inner peace that none of us possess. Monsieur de la Roche slowly sets his wineglass down. A shadow crosses his eyes. "Happiness cannot be bought," he murmurs, almost to himself. Yasmina then meets Madame de la Roche's gaze. For the first time, she sees a genuine curiosity in her eyes. A few weeks later, Yasmina enters the house and immediately senses that something is wrong. A heavy silence. A charged atmosphere. In the grand living room, Madame de la Roche is curled up in an armchair, staring at her phone. Her fingers tremble as she refreshes the same news page over and over. A copy of Le Monde lies on the glass coffee table. The bold headline screams disaster. The fall of an empire. The financial scandal shaking the de la Roche family. The room seems to spin around her. The walls adorned with priceless paintings suddenly feel meaningless. Decades of power, wealth, and influence, wiped away in an instant. Monsieur de la Roche enters the room, his face frozen in shock. For the first time he has no confidence left. "They want to seize our assets." His voice, usually filled with authority and arrogance, is barely a whisper. Yasmina, standing quietly in the background, watches the scene unfold. These people who once had everything have now realized they had nothing at all. One night, as Yasmina is about to leave, she hears a voice gently calling her. "Yasmina?" She turns around. Madame de la Roche is standing in the hallway, an unusual glimmer in her eyes. "Can you tell me about your God?" Her tone is hesitant, but there is no mockery. Only a sincere search for meaning. They settle into a small lounge, far from the usual lavish surroundings. Yasmina gently pulls out a small Quran from her bag and recites, "Whoever believes and does good, we will grant them a peaceful life." Madame de la Roche's eyes fill with tears. "I've had everything, Yasmina, but I have never been at peace." She looks at the book in the young woman's hands and, after a moment's hesitation, reaches out timidly. "Teach me." The once indestructible patriarch is now a frail old man, lying in a white bed with cold sheets. Yasmina enters the room. He slowly turns his head towards her. Once his eyes were filled with disdain, today there is only exhaustion. "Why are you so calm?" he murmurs. Yasmina steps closer, her voice soft but unwavering. "Because I know that I control nothing. He controls everything." She hands him a small piece of paper with a verse written on it. "Do not despair of the mercy of Allah." Surah Az-Zumar, 39:53. A single tear rolls down his wrinkled cheek. He exhales shakily, staring at the words for a long time. Then, in a barely audible voice, he whispers, "Teach me." Arriving at the mosque, a final step towards truth. The late afternoon bathes Paris in a golden light as the de la Roche family walks slowly toward the mosque. It is a modest place, far from the opulence and grandeur of their former life, but an inexplicable serenity reigns here. The light wind rustles the leaves of the plane trees lining the entrance. For the first time, Monsieur de la Roche crosses the threshold of a place of worship without cynicism. Today he is no longer a businessman, no longer a financial titan. He is simply a man in search of truth. Beside him, his wife Eleanor tightens her scarf around her neck, nervous but determined. Adrien clasps his hands behind his back, taking a deep breath. Camille holds a small copy of the Quran between her trembling fingers. Behind them, Yasmina observes discreetly, standing a few steps back. She has forced nothing, imposed nothing. Allah has paved their way, and today, they are about to make the most significant decision of their lives. The prayer hall, a silence filled with emotion. The Imam greets them with a warm smile. "Welcome." His voice is calm, as if he understands that this moment is much more than just a conversion. It is a rebirth. They step forward onto the thick carpet, their bare feet sinking into its softness. The scent of musk lingers lightly in the air. There is a tranquility here that Monsieur de la Roche has never known in the boardrooms where he once ruled. He stops. A lump forms in his throat. Yasmina watches discreetly. She can sense the inner struggle he is facing. This man who once had everything has now found something infinitely more precious. The moment of truth, speaking the words that change a life. The Imam asks if they are ready. Monsieur de la Roche exchanges a glance with his wife. She nods softly. He closes his eyes. His body is weary, weakened by illness, but his heart beats with newfound vigor. Then, in a deep, slow voice, filled with sincerity never heard before, he declares, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah." I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. His voice trembles slightly, but he completes the words. As he speaks them, it is as if an invisible weight is lifted from his shoulders. A solemn silence fills the room. Then comes Madame de la Roche's turn. Her voice is softer but just as laden with emotion. "Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah." Her hands grip her knees. A single tear rolls down her cheek, but these are not tears of sadness. It is a peace she has never known. Adrien closes his eyes for a moment, gathers his courage, then pronounces the Shahada with sincere determination. Finally, Camille, the youngest, places a hand on her heart before whispering the profession of faith, her voice breaking with emotion. At that precise moment, everything changes. Yasmina's silent tears, a mission accomplished. Yasmina has remained slightly in the background throughout the ceremony. This is not her moment, it is theirs. But as she hears these words emerge from the lips of people who once seemed so distant from faith, her heart overflows with gratitude. A silent tear rolls down her cheek. She remembers the day she found that forgotten Quran in the library. She thinks of the arrogant, empty woman that Madame de la Roche once was. Of Adrien, so cynical. Of Monsieur de la Roche, who believed that the only power that existed was money. And yet, today Allah has guided them. She quickly wipes her tear and closes her eyes for a moment. She never sought to convert them. She simply lived her faith sincerely, and Allah opened their hearts. The first call to prayer. A new life begins. As the Imam concludes the ceremony, the adhan gently resonates through the hall. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Monsieur de la Roche, once so self-assured, lowers his head slightly. His shoulders relax. For the first time in his life, he understands what it truly means to submit. Madame de la Roche closes her eyes. The sound of the adhan feels strangely familiar, like a call she had ignored all her life. Camille wipes her damp cheeks. Adrien smiles, a real smile, freed from pretense. They do not yet know what the future holds. They only know that they have finally found what was missing. Leaving the mosque, a glance toward the future. As they step out of the mosque, the setting sun paints the sky in shades of orange and pink. A new chapter of their lives has begun. Monsieur de la Roche places a hand on Adrian's shoulder and whispers, "For the first time, I feel light." Madame de la Roche turns to Yasmina and takes her hands. Thank you for being an example." Yasmina smiles softly. It is Allah who guides. They walk forward together into a new life, leaving behind the illusions of wealth and power, to embrace true serenity.